Hey, it's the weekend. It's actually the weekend before all chaos breaks out in New York City. Next weekend is the Halloween celebrations. You do parades kind of in Greenwich Village, I think throughout the city. I think that's the best known one, is the Greenwich Village Parade. That's where they all break into the Michael Jackson dance. And then Sunday, so Halloween's on Friday, and then that Sunday is the New York City Marathon. So I'm walking through the park now. They've been setting up all the stands and barriers and guides for the marathon next week. Actually, the park today isn't as busy as it has been during the week this past week. Usually around this time, there's a couple hundred runners. Having never run a marathon, my guess is that they're running parts of the route throughout the city. Not as busy today. My guess is that they might be running in different boroughs or different parts of the track, since tomorrow's the last day to get that feeling of what it's like on a specific day to run. Yeah, my guess is most people are, at least most runners, are doing other parts of the map. It's kind of cool. So New York City is made up of 5 boroughs. The New York City Marathon touches each borough, which means that they've got to cross at least one bridge, which is the very beginning. They start off in Staten Island and cross the Verrazano Bridge, and then make their way across and end up actually up here on the Upper West Side. Although for some reason, I thought they ended up on Central Park West, like the street. On the west side, there's Central Park West, Columbus, Amsterdam, Broadway, Riverside, or West End, Riverside. It looks like they're going to end up in the park because they've got the stands and everything kind of down here by Tavern on the Green. The logistics that goes into this, incredible. Yeah, this must be where they call the end of the race. I'll see if I can get a picture of this. Well, I can definitely get a picture of it. There's a big metallic stand. It's almost like a framework that they're putting together, which is probably going to be where the people that call the race announcers are going to sit. And then just a couple of feet from down there is the stands. So I'm guessing this is probably where the finish line is, which is, right out on the other side of Tavern on the Green. I think is like 66. This is always my favorite shot. It's a shot of focused on downtown. Morning. Looking south towards 59th Street, Central Park South. And then hanging a right that loops around the Tavern on the Green. And then gets you a nice view of kind of West Side buildings. The difference being that West Side buildings are mostly brick and have been around for decades. The Central Park South building, you're starting to look into Midtown, so you're getting a lot of those skinny skyscrapers that are mostly built of glass. Beautiful, just different. Since we moved back, they've been building a new glass tower on the Upper West Side, bottom of the Upper West Side, towards like Lincoln Center area. It's just so different. Okay, out of the park. They're starting to put up a lot of the no parking signs for next week. I think that's partly due to construction. We're getting the tools and vehicles in and out of the park. They need a place to park them. It's a bunch of yellow signs on poles. No parking today. If you ever visit New York, or when you visit New York, and you're walking around and you see a little square yellow or pink, yeah, it's like a paper sign. You'll see a kind of a bunch of them in a row on different poles. Stop and read it. Most of the time, those are signs letting people know that they'll be doing filming in the area. And you'll see, right, CSI or The Good Housewife back in the day. Always fun to stop and read those. I might be a little too early with the sun rising so late these days. Oh, I'm not. Okay. So I might have mentioned on a previous episode about the light, the eastern light hitting the west, eastern facing buildings on the west side. If I can get another cab, here comes one. Let me see how this is going to turn out. We got the subway. We got an old school building. Some steam coming from the subway. And the subway. All in the same picture. That's a New York shot for you. By the way, I'm trying to time the recording with the pictures I take. So if you hear a click, click, that's me taking a picture. See in your podcast app if there's a picture that relates to whatever the heck I'm saying at that time. Like this one might be a good one to show. I've got a wide lens on right now, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this whole thing. But in the background, there's a water tower, and then in the background, there's like a red building, brick building, and that sun's starting to peek up over the park. And because that's such a tall building, at the very top of it is the sun's just bouncing off of it. Yeah, real nice. It's one of my favorite things to do is get up in the morning and see that sunlight. Never gets old. Yeah, second thing is to go down to Lincoln Center. That's the Dakota building. It's the building that John Lennon and Yoko Ono used to live in. It's right on the corner of 72nd and Central Park West. If you cross the street from the Dakota building and get into the Strawberry Field area, there's a monument for the Beatles and John Lennon. It's the Imagine Monument. So I'm on 72nd. I'm on 72nd, walking towards the Hudson, the river. And there's some north-facing buildings. Yeah, north-facing buildings-ish on 72nd. And the very tops of them are getting just a little tickle of sunlight. But the rest of them are still on shade. That's because the buildings across the street are of the same height. Okay, here's an example of those signs I was talking about on street poles. These are orange, so they might be more about parking. At least you'll get an idea of what I mean. This project is called Deli Love. It's on Monday. So you can't park here because they're filming something called Deli Love. And that's on 72nd. I don't know, maybe a third of the way down towards Columbus, all the way down to Columbus. They've also got these sidewalk barriers, these big like cinder blocks from the NYPD. I'm guessing they put those up so cars don't jump the sidewalk. And then on Sundays, I can't remember how late it goes. Might have already been closed down, but Sundays in the Upper West Side, all throughout the city, but at least up here, they close down the streets. It's called open streets. And they close down a certain amount of streets that to auto traffic. And then put like tables and seatings, and food comes out, and there's like dance instructors. It's kind of fun. It's very festive. And by the way, when you hear about New York, or at least New York City or Manhattan in particular, you probably don't hear a lot about the Upper West Side. You know, maybe like when Harry Met Sally was filmed up on 83rd in Amsterdam. And you kind of don't come up here unless you're going to school at Columbia or, I don't know, taking your folks out to dinner. I mean, Seinfeld was filmed up here. So, cred established. When you think about like the Upper East Side, and you probably think about like Madison Avenue and Park Avenue and all the museums along Museum Mile. What's fascinating about the Upper West Side is it's super sleepy. I mean, we've got the park, Central Park, right, in between East and West Side. And then Riverside Park is down by the Hudson River. So we're kind of closed in by two parks, more or less. The New York City Marathon ends here. And the Thanksgiving Day Parade starts up here on 77th and 81st. I mean, we have the tall buildings, not as tall, it's all relative, but we have the tall buildings. We just have wider streets here. So it seems like it's more like kind of a suburban area compared to like the Lower East Side or the Village, even like the financial district. Let's see if I can get this shot. This might be a good one, just to show like the heights of the buildings. And it's still busy up here and still loud. Oh, there's like a fashion Halloween setup up here. I'll send over to you. It's on 75th. I'll take a picture of it when I get over there. It's also a hitting, like a baseball, like hitting cage, batter's cage inside of a bank. The Beacon is up here. Larry David was just there. We've seen Bill Burr play there. I get my film developed over here. This place is happening. There's a picture of a water tower. Yeah, and we have water towers. How about that? Okay, here's the Halloween thingy. I don't think I've ever seen like a sparkly skeleton, or a pink skeleton for that matter. Strike the pose, I guess. I've been thinking a lot about Kool-Aid lately. The Kool-Aid in the phrase sense, not the actual drink. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. The history of that. I mean, the history of Kool-Aid is bonkers. You think about it, kids, and hot summer days. The big smiley guy. Yet it's linked to like just really awful stuff. Is interesting. Alleged awful stuff. Allegedly linked. The stuff was pretty awful. I'm thinking about it more in like a corporate perspective. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Hey, look, another sign. Yeah, that's Open Streets. I think it goes through maybe the first or second weekend of November. Here's a good photo of the Upper West Side. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 water towers, and just in a line. Yeah, more like in a corporate culture. Like you join a company, you're excited, your team is excited, you're brought on for a reason, right? So you get into this fire hose of corporate information. Here's how we do things. Here's our processes. Here's what we talk about. Here's what we don't talk about. Here's what we say publicly. Here's how we say it publicly. Whether you're in a leadership position or an individual contributor role, you get absorbed into everything, right? Company XYZ. I think the danger in that, and getting completely, enveloped into the company culture, is you're kind of losing touch with reality. And I don't mean that in like you're going insane or the company's insane or what they do is insane. There's any kind of insanity, although we all know that companies always have a touch of insanity, right? And part of their competitive differentiation is how they do things, right? And because they hired you, they had an open role and they brought you on, they must be doing something right? They're growing, even if it's a backfill position, right? They're still growing labor is the most expensive cost in any organization, and they're betting that your salary will be covered by some sort of factor of revenue. Ooh, I forgot to add to Halloween and the New York Marathon. Yesterday or today is early voting. You might have heard that New York City is voting for mayor, one of the most important mayorships in America. So insanity. Yeah, I especially think that if you're in a leadership role or you're in, a public relations, a communications role, making sure that you stay arm's length from that company culture, that Kool-Aid, is so important. And the reason for that is, the world around you is reacting with and without you, without your messaging, but it's also moving on. And if you get into this culture of here's how we do everything, and we're making these assumptions because that's all they are, not putting aside the organization that you're working with, you just get into this like hardcore funnel of everything the company does is right, and whatever a competitor or a market shift is wrong or not lasting or a trend, you just get yourself in a lot of trouble. And it's not something that will show up, in the next quarter. It will show up. Sometimes it'll show up in client contracts that are not being reviewed, right? The words that you say and put into public are read by your clients. And if that's not a direction that they're going in, it's troubling. And if you don't have a team, either an account management team or however your organization is structured, that aren't reaching out to your clients on a regular basis to check in with them, quarterly business reviews, general touch points on certain dates. And the only time you talk to them is when the contract is in renewal. Boy, you're going to see it pretty quick then. There's that line of, how'd you fail? Slowly, then all of a sudden. It's something like that. And I'm certainly not suggesting that the way that you combat that potential sales downfall is only through, right, keeping arm's length and not always drinking from the Kool-Aid fountain. It's after 7, and they're already doing construction on the subway. Happy Saturday. Yeah, there's just this idea of, be a proponent, be a contributor, be engaged. Part of your job is to make sure that you're not engaged to the extent that you're able to clearly see what's happening around you. I think that drinking the Kool-Aid is not good. Plus, for your own professional career, your own skills and upskilling and experience and expertise, only banking on that current organization you're with in their current direction, which you may or may not have, any say on that. I just find it silly. Okay, I'm walking by. So I mentioned the poll site, the early voting site. That's the American Museum of Natural History. You probably remember that from the night at the museum. You might also might have sounded familiar from when they took the Roosevelt statue down. Theodore Roosevelt Memorial, in honor of New York State's 33rd governor, the nation's 26th president, awarded Nobel Peace Prize, Medal of Honor recipient, author, and naturalist. There used to be maybe this is it here. There used to be a big statue of him on a horse. The equestrian statue of Theodore Roosevelt, erected on this site by New York State following Roosevelt's death, was removed in 2022 by agreement among the museum, the Roosevelt family, and the city of New York because its composition suggested a racial hierarchy. They'd Google what that might have looked like previously, the statue. It was during that time of, which, 2022 was only a few years ago, time of almost reclamation of our history of our past and those leaders that played a part in it. A lot of this happened in the Confederate States, but also here in New York City. If you are going to the museum, walk around the whole thing before you go in, or after. Walking around the whole thing is kind of neat. It starts at 81st or whatever. One side is 81st, the other side is 77th. So it stretches a good 4 city blocks. And then it sits in between Central Park West and Columbus. Every side has its unique, thing. On the Columbus side, that's probably one of the main entrances. I think there's 2 main entrances, Columbus and then 81st. I mentioned Thanksgiving. The parade starts up here. Yeah, it starts right here. The balloons are brought out between Central Park West and Columbus on 77th and 81st. They're brought out, they're flattened. They close off the streets, which is an absolute pain if you live here. You live here and you drive. And then they blow them all up. And then Thanksgiving Day morning at an awful hour of the day, I think like around 4 a.m., they start coming up and releasing them from the nets so they don't fly away. And then, they head down Central Park West and end up at the Macy's building on 34th. It's a good 30 streets. I don't know if I get a picture of downtown on the way out here, but here's an example of that, of those pencil skyscrapers. But yeah, the museum, if you walk around the backside, which I consider the backside on Central Park West, there's a subway entrance or exit. It's the 77th and 81st Street stop on the west side. If you walk down that subway or the stairs down to the subway, you have to go into the subway like the trains. But if you walk in, there's a member entrance to the museum there. But the walls are all decorated with dinosaurs and just museum-related stuff. It's pretty neat. Did I take a picture of this earlier? It's another Halloween themed front of a home. Okay, Kool-Aid. Look it up. And don't drink so much of it.